Okay. I'd like to reconvene from closed session, and I would ask the attorney to give us legal notice.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City Council met in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 Subdivision D1, a conference with legal counsel on existing litigation in Martin versus City of Solvang, Santa Barbara County Superior Court Case Number 21 CV 00883. There was no reportable action.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. At this point in time, we will adjourn from closed session, and we will start the general session in 10 minutes at 6:30. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to the special meeting of the City Council on Thursday, January 12th. I'll now call the meeting to order at 6:30. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brown. Present. Councilmember Claudia Arona.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona.
Here.
Mayor Infante.
Here. Thank you. Madam Arona, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Everybody please stand and place the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Thank you. We have one proclamation this evening that I would like to take a few minutes. Is she here? Okay, good. I don't know her by sight, so. This is a proclamation on the Human Traffic Awareness Month. Whereas the human trafficking is a form of modern slavery that occurs in every state, including California, wherein victims are forced to work in various forms of labor exploitation, including but not limited to commercial sex acts and other services that are induced through fraud, or coercion. Whereas due to its isolated and discrete nature, many individuals across the globe are unaware that trafficking exists in their communities. And whereas it's estimated that more than 28 million people around the world are victims of human trafficking, and whereas human trafficking victims face a cruelty that has no place in a civilized world, it is a crime that can take many forms and one that tears at our social fabric, debases our common humanity, and violates what we stand for as a country. Whereas increased education about how to identify human trafficking, along with increased knowledge of in-state resources and services for those affected by criminal exploitation, can help decrease the number of future victims. And whereas the Santa Barbara County Human Trafficking Task Force is committed to using all applicable laws and resources for investigating human trafficking and prosecuting those who are engaged in it. And whereas Santa Barbara County Human Trafficking Task Force has worked diligently to bring awareness to the fact that human trafficking does occur closer to home than one might think, that California ranks #1 in the country for reported human trafficking cases, and Santa Barbara County is home to hundreds of survivors of trafficking and exploitation. And whereas Human Trafficking Awareness Month is an opportunity to recognize the critical role all Solvang residents play in preventing, reporting, and adjudicating these heinous crimes. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, Mayor Mark Infante, along with the City Council and the City Council of the City of Solvang, California, proclaim on January 2023 as Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and I call this observance to the attention of all of our citizens. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the City of Solvang to be affixed. It says on the 9th day of January, when we had originally planned to do this, but we'll accept that for now. So yes, ma'am, would you please tell us a little bit about what's going on?
Absolutely. Thank you, and Mayor Infante and members of the City Council, for this honor of being before you tonight. My name is Ann McCarty, and I'm the Executive Director for the North County Rape Crisis and Child Protection Center. Our agency provides services in all of northern Santa Barbara County and Mid-County, but tonight I come to you as a member of the Human Trafficking Task Force to bring your attention to this global and local crisis. January is indeed Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and sadly, our pristine little slice of heaven here on earth is not immune to this terrible form of victimization. Human trafficking is indeed an issue that is pervasive in our community, but few people talk about it. The County Human Trafficking Task Force was formed in 2013 because we realized that none of us can do this work alone, and we can't do it in a vacuum, and we simply had to unite. We engage and rely on the expertise that each entity brings to the table. It's a true collaborative effort as we work to assess the scope of the problem locally, offer access to training opportunities for many develop protocols, and improve law enforcement and victim service response. We are a group of organizations with a common goal of educating, intervening, advocating, and changing the landscape of trafficking. So just how bad is it? Well, in my opinion, and I say this a lot, one is too many. And human trafficking is a crime that knows absolutely no boundaries, and everyone, and I mean everyone, is at risk. In Santa Barbara County, since January 2017, there have been 243 new human trafficking investigations, with 217 new survivors having been identified. Of those, 27% have been minors, with an additional 33% between the ages of 18 to 24. 42% were Santa Barbara residents prior to trafficking, and 91% were sex trafficking cases. Keep in mind, human trafficking is in fact hard to measure. It's difficult to measure. Fear of harm to self or others, language barriers, lack of personal freedom, and fear of law enforcement often prevent victims from reporting their victimization or seeking any services at all. So the number really has the potential to be much higher. As a city council, you have taken a step by acknowledging the work with this proclamation. But what now? Your work isn't done. Learn more. Call us, and we'll provide you with more information than I can give you in my 3 minutes here at this podium. We love talking to people because honestly, we need you. Imagine how much stronger we are when we present an educated, uniformed front to fight this insidious form of violence. What if you knew what the red flags were and had the tools to act upon them? What if you were able to confidently have conversations with young people to educate them as well? The Trafficking Task Force has a lot to offer, and we encourage each of you to visit our website of trafficstopsb.org to learn more. We'd also like to make you aware of an upcoming vigil that's being held on January 18th at 5:30 p.m. in De La Guerra Plaza. This Vigil for Freedom will shine an even greater light on our work and those we help. But for now, we thank you for honoring each of us with this proclamation, for acknowledging our work, and for the work that you do in your community to help keep it safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McCarty, I would like to present you the proclamation. Okay, at this point in time, we're going to allow public communications on non-agenda or consent items, but I would like to start off with a few comments first. First, Happy New Year. I hope that all of you have lived through this last rainstorm, cyclone thing, without too much damage. There has been a lot going on. I want to commend and thank our city staff. We have had, while most of us were sitting at home putting up with the rain on the outside, we had people on the outside taking care of the city to make sure it continues to run in a way that supports your residencies. On Tuesday, we had city staff in the offices handling those issues that keep the city running on a day-to-day basis. So it's with great pride that this council represents the work that they do. With new council members and many attending tonight's meeting that have probably not been here before, I'd like to give you a quick overview of the council procedures, please. So the city clerk is going to read each agenda item, including this one that we'll start in a second, which is the public communication. City staff will provide a report if there's one necessary to define what's going on. Council members at that time, any of us up here on the dais can ask questions of the city council. It's not a time for us to make comments. It's a time to ask questions about the details of that particular agenda item. Then we will ask for public comments. Speakers will provide their name and city of residence and be limited to 3 minutes. So when you stand up at the podium, there's 3 lights there. One will turn green when we get started. If the yellow one starts, that means, your time is just about up, time to conclude. When the red one lights, we would like you to stop talking. Okay? We've got a lot of people here, a bunch of people on Zoom. It's going to be a long evening, so I'm going to ask you, please stick to your 3-minute limit. Once everybody in the council has spoken, has had their chance, and we'll start with in-house and then we'll go to those online, then it will come back to the dais for us to have comments and make some kind of conclusion, either a motion, an acceptance, whatever might be the case for that particular event. So I hope that this makes it clear to everybody how we will proceed. And with that, we'll start with public communications on non-agenda and consent items. So I have one here from Mr. Dennis Beebe. Would you like to come up and speak with us, Dennis? Please tell us your name and city of residence.
Dennis Beebe, Solvang. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you. Oh, the incumbent council members, thank you for your continued support to us. But for the newbies, good luck. But tonight I have a kind of a sad announcement, but I think it's worthy for the council to hear it and any resident that might hear it too. We lost one of our own earlier this week, a friend of the city, a friend of the community and myself, James Axtell. Jim is a member of the greatest generation. He had assignment to the United States Army Air Forces, if you've ever heard of them. They preceded my service, which was the United States Air Force. And he was about to go and help invade Japan when VJ Day occurred, and instead he went to Japan and helped MacArthur straighten out things. I met him decades later. He mustered out in '46, and GIs at that time were given the rights to bid on brand new military vehicles, Jeeps in particular, for their own private conveyance. He bid and got a new 44 Jeep built by Ford. That's how I met him, because I had got this club together of Jeep owners so we could share how much money was going down that rat hole. So Jim was a member for so many years. I met him when he was in the early 80s. He got a little more feeble as time went on, and I warned him I would evict him from the club if he could no longer climb into his own Jeep. He was sly, though. He sold his Jeep to another member, and from then on, he rode as a passenger rather than a driver. We lost him 2 days ago. Jim Axtell was 103 years old.
Wow. Thank you very much. Next, I have a public comment request from Tracy Beard.
Hello, Mark and Mayor. Congratulations. I want to talk about real quick the certification business certificates. We didn't have enough time, some of our businesses feel. Last year, we had until the 17th. I have brought last year's with me, and this year we had to have them in by the 31st, our certificates, and there was a $55 assessment fee starting January 1st. We'd like to have it extended till the 17th as it was last year. That's typically been year after year. So we've had a lot of comment on that. So 22, it's just a lot, it's a big fine, $55 is, and it's a $34 certificate. And a lot of people missed it because they were busy towards the end of the year. So that was all my request is to maybe extend the certificate, the fine for the certifications. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Okay, do we have, I think that's everybody that's turned in a request. Is there anybody else in the meeting room that would like to speak on, as a general comment, not on any particular agenda item? No? Do we have anybody on Zoom that would like to say, we've got a hand held on one of the people there? Hand up. Can you see that one? Oh, we got a hand up here in the audience. I was looking at the hand on Zoom.
Mark, I gave you a speaker slip.
I missed it then. If it was for this particular just general products? No, you've got him for 6C.
Pardon?
You have a request in to speak on item 6C.
Oh, just a public,
This is just public for anything that's non-agenda.
oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. There was somebody on Zoom with their hand raised. Did we get them?
It was Rebecca Gowing, but I don't see the hand anymore.
I don't see your hand anymore either. Okay. In that case, we will bring it back and go to the city manager's report, please.
Okay, first I want to thank the residents for allowing us to move the meeting to today. We think it was much better than, the weather's much better today than it was on Monday night. And so the staff was quite busy on that day. So I want a little quick summary. As Mark said, I want to thank the staff. They have done over and above what they needed to do to help get the city through this. The city, from a public infrastructure standpoint, did pretty well during the storm. We had a minor little slip on Friedensborg, which we closed that. Obviously, the overtopping of the Alamo Pintado Creek Bridge on Mission. Caltrans is still working on cleaning that up, and we had some pretty good damage to the commercial buildings around that general area there. And on the wastewater side, the plant was actually operating at 2 million gallons a day at times, and we were using the old plant to hold some of the things. So we had no spills or anything. So that was good on the staff's part to move things around and make that work. South Alisal is still closed. There's quite a bit of debris south of town, and so the county has asked us to maintain that closure until they get a chance to clean some more of that up down there. I would like to point out, we had our normal sandbag area at the Vets Hall, and people used it. We ran through quite a few bags, and we would tell people there was bags there, but the people beat them to it. So we continue to try to fill that up. We've got a new batch for this next storm. We found another source, and so we'll again provide sand, and we're trying to limit customers to just using 6 so that their neighbors can also get bags, because we did have some people taking the whole bundle, and that doesn't really work. To try to share with your neighbors. So
Thank you.
we had some minor damage at some of the parks. We actually, internally, we had some problems with the annex. We had some leakage in the building over there, and we're doing a little drainage retrofit to make that better for the future. And then I want to note that our building and planning staff went out today to kind of talk to some of the buildings and properties that were affected, and so we're trying to get some damage assessments to help with there was a federal declaration, and we're trying to get the assessments towards that, the amount of damage that was there. And I just wanted to note that Sophia from our planning staff said that the business owners said there was so much gratitude to the citizens of the area of San Ynez Valley, that just so much kindness was reaped upon the people that had damage and things. So, I mean, that's just, we all know, San Ynez Valley pulls together, and that was good. Tracy didn't mention, but the chamber is going to start pulling together the process for businesses to try to deal with their losses and the recoveries. There'll be some federal programs set up for that, and we're going to try to have a community meeting in the next few weeks once those processes are set up. And so we'll look towards that information in the future. Then I wanted to, on operations of the city, the council some months back approved funding for a couple of community service officers part-time, and so we're going to be starting that at the end of January. We'll have a new community services officer working evenings and weekends to help persuade businesses to follow the sign rules and those types of things. It'll be a warning process with some hand-holding and talking to try to get businesses to comply. But just so that we know, we've had a lot of issues on the weekends, obviously when no city staff is enforcing that, and a lot of things come out, and so we're going to be enforcing that, just to let the businesses know. And then the review of the housing element is out for public comment until January 15th, and the general plan team that's is spearheaded by our Public Works Director, Roger Olds, will bring that draft comments to our next council meeting, the 23rd. That draft is available on plansolvang.com. Interested parties may submit via the green comments tab on that page or emailing to Sophia at our planning manager at scheca@citysolvang.com. I think that was all I had for my update. Future items, as I mentioned, the housing element will be on the next one. Council will be selecting representatives for the boards and committees. We will have our annual comprehensive financial report, a notice of completion on our large slurry seal project, and then the kickoff of our community grants process, which the council had approved earlier, and that will start in the beginning of February. And I think that's all I have for my update.
Thank you very much. I've been doing a little driving around myself and trying to take a look at what's going on, and it's amazing how quickly we've gotten most stuff done. Looks like Caltrans had a contractor that pulled out all the limbs off from underneath the bridge on Alisal there.
Yep,
The Alisal
working on it
River.
today, yep.
Yeah, so it should be cleared out. I was talking with Supervisor Joan Hartman about the Kachuma spill. That has yet to be determined, but it has been determined that it'll be done slowly. So we are not going to inundate our river.
Yeah, they've actually started doing releases.
Did they
small
start it
releases,
already?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll monitor our wells, because those could be affected by that, but yeah, they have started doing slow releases.
Which is good, because we're going to have more rain coming in the next couple of days, and so we want everybody to be aware of that, and we're going to try and make sure that we don't get too much going into the river. Excellent. Anybody have any questions of the city manager's report?
No, no question.
No? All right, so next what we'd like to have is council comments and requests. This is your opportunity, for those of us on the dais, to make requests of what we'd like to see or what we'd like to have done. So if I may start with Councilmember Claudia Rona.
Okay, I would just like to again thank staff for the work that they did to support everybody and clean up after the storm. It was fantastic. I am sorry to hear about a lot of the damage that happened down in the Alisal Road, but we're also very lucky that we fared as well as we did. From hanging out in the downtown area, these plastic water bottles are going out of style, and a lot of people are opting for carrying their own canteens. So I was wondering if, as a city, I know we have the drinking fountains, but if we can look into adding refillable water bottle stations.
Yeah, we can take a look at that, maybe near the public restrooms or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and I also want to wish Tracy Beard a late happy birthday. Thank you so much for everything that you do for our community. And that's all I've got for now. Oh, and also thank you to everybody that obeyed the instructions that we got to either stay at home or evacuate if we're in certain areas. It's always important to obey those so that we don't put ourselves or others in harm, and also that we allow law enforcement and first responders to do their job. And I just wanted to thank everybody for, cooperating that way.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I got a lot of really nice compliments on the park and the performance of the light show and the things that went on during the holiday season. So appreciate everybody's participation in the in making Solvang the go-to place during the holidays. And I think that's as well. It looks like now, from the rain and into the holiday, it's like a ghost town almost, because it was so busy. We had overflow parking in a number of places. So it was a nice holiday season. I'm glad to see that. And again, thank you to our staff for all the endeavors. We get updated quite frequently, and also we get updates also from PG&E as to power outages and things of that nature. So I appreciate knowing that, and we can pass that along. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Elizabeth Arona.
Yeah, thank you.
This microphone.
I think I'm on. Am I on, guys? Okay. Well, first of all, Happy New Year, everyone, and thank you for making the quick adjustment to come tonight instead of Monday night. I'll report out that in the Alisal Ranch on Monday night, it was very stressful, even into Tuesday morning. And I'll save my comments for how the storm affected them in a minute. I do want to also echo that it was very exciting to see the traffic and the crush that Solvang experienced over the holiday, especially between Christmas and New Year. I'm hoping some of the businesses had some of their best days ever, especially in between the rain, where it looked like New York City out there. It was amazing. Suddenly we have more water than we know what to do with. In a 24-hour period, I think the numbers were 12 to 13 inches at the Alisal Lake. In 24 hours. Incredible. The work and the response from the city, from the community, from the county was also incredible. And the reaction from the community, which was to stay off the street and let the first responders do their work, is what we should all witness when we have an incident. And as much as the weather report can forecast for you, it's really a real-time response. So I want to thank the flood control teams, Caltrans, the Santa Barbara County Office of Emergency Services, the sheriff and the fire departments, our teams, Public Works, the water departments, the wastewater departments, anybody else who tossed in a hand. I know the staff was working long hours and getting us reports out and status to make sure we had reactions where it was needed. And I can only imagine these folks were also worried about their homes and their families, but doing the jobs that needed to be done. I did also want to note that PG&E was very proactive. They were on heightened alert through day before, day of, and a couple of days after the storm, making sure that power management was foremost and that we knew it. I think the city fared fairly well. Some damage and cleanup. I know we'll all pull together. It feels like the brunt of what we're seeing is in my district, which is the Alisal Ranch. And so we wish them a very, very speedy recovery and all the help we can offer.
Thank you. A couple comments. First off, anybody that wants to apply for a commission seat, a board seat, or a committee seat for the various boards and commissions that support us, please make sure that you've got your application in before the next city council meeting where we'll be talking about those appointments. One of the things that came out of this rainstorm to me was the city's emergency management plan. That plan went into place in 2015 and has not been updated. Now, I didn't read all 282 pages of it, I will be honest with you. But what I did read looked like it was all pretty valid, except I can't say that all of the state organizations and county organizations are the same, but it looked pretty valid. What I didn't see there that I would like to see, how do we notify the residents? How do the residents get out of town? If we had a massive fire in the center of town, what are the exit routes out of here? Or we had a massive problem where people had to get out of their homes and collect. Where do they collect? I would like to see that plan in something like, 3-4 pages instead of 282, that we could make available to the residents.
Yeah, I actually wrote that plan when I was here before, so I'm
2015
very
plan.
familiar with it. And I have read all 200 and some pages. But yeah, I can take a look at it and maybe we can provide some kind of summary on that. But I do, and I meant to mention in my report, the readysbc.org, the county's website, has a lot of information.
It does.
Evacuations, it has a lot of information. And in the recovery, they'll also have information on that page. So just remember to look on that website for various information.
That tells our residents where to go if they can't.
No. That'll tell you what roads are closed and
Okay.
yeah, if there's evacuations, where they are. But yeah, they wouldn't have routes on those.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see something for the residents that say, here's what you do in this.
Yeah, so our evacuation center is the Vets Hall.
I understand.
Identified by that plan. So.
like
But yeah,
make
if
that
it's
available
leave
to
town,
everybody.
then obviously we would need to give better direction.
Few
don't
people
go
have
to
come
vet.
here since 2015.
Yeah.
You know, and you never can tell. Okay.
And when you're done, I actually have one more do-over on my report. I forgot some information, so.
Okay, I have only one more comment. I think all of us have received a Zoom call from the organization who was recently permitted to put in a medical cannabis distribution office store down in the Castle, I believe, on the east end of town, west end of town, sorry. And they are asking for the capability to change that to, they use the term adult,
Recreational or
recreational,
adult,
yeah. But
Non-medicinal.
You don't have, right now, as medicinal, you have to have a doctor's order, prescription, in order to get the cannabis. Without, if it goes to an adult or recreational, then anybody with a driver's license says they're 21 can get the cannabis. And so my question to the council members is, do we want to consider that for this group or anybody else that might come?
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, the request would be to put it on an agenda to discuss rather than to make a decision?
I know we're not going to make a decision. Thank you. I'm sorry. You can't make a decision. I just want to know if you want to discuss it, and we'll put it on an agenda in the future. So because we need to have advance warning to the residents so that they can give their opinion on this as well.
Yeah, put it on the agenda.
Yes? No?
I see 3, so I think you got a consensus to
That
bring it
sounds like
back.
consensus. I think we have bigger priorities.
I'd like to put it on a future agenda. There's 3 of us that said yes. I'm not sure which agenda. It's going to have to go down a couple of months. We've
Well, I
got
would
so much
definitely
stuff to do.
recommend you have the full council, have your vacancy.
Thank you. That's a
Yeah.
great idea. When we
But,
have a full
yeah, I
council.
did get contacted also by them about an agenda item. So we'll plan it in our future agendas.
Excellent. Thank you. And that's my comments. And Brad, then you said you had one more update?
Yeah, Jenny McClurg with our Recreation Department told me that we were supposed to disclose the winners of the Christmas decorating contest, and
Oh.
I forgot to do that. The winner of the most creative was a tie between the Brown family in Creekside and the De Los Cabos family on Neistat. The winner of the best lights was the Willis family in the Alisal Glen, and the winner of the most traditional was the Iglesias family in the Alisal Glen. So those, congratulations to all the winners, and thank you for participating in the city's decorating contest.
Thank you very much. I think that's great. Madam Clerk, if you would read the item 4, please.
We'll now move to consent. Consent is designed for routine administrative city matters and is approved by roll call vote with one motion. These items are discussed only on the request of council members. Members of the public were afforded an opportunity to speak on consent items during the public communications portion of this agenda.
Okay, do we have a motion or comment? Yeah?
For item 4C, which is the minutes of the first part of the last meeting, personally, I would abstain. I'm not part of the council or seated at that time.
Your mic's low.
I'm sorry, I'm new at this, but it's all right. I was saying that because I don't want to approve the board meeting previous to my being seated, so I wish to abstain from that approval.
That approval.
Okay? That's all I'm saying for the consent.
I think, was the draft for both meetings or were they individual drafts? There were 2. So just the one that he was not on, he's going to abstain from.
Correct.
And I assume that would be valid for Ms. Elizabeth Rona as well.
Well, if I can point out, you're not legally required to have attended the meeting or have participated if you have a basis to review the minutes or have a basis to review them through either video or other means, or if you were present in the council chambers at the time, you could go ahead and approve them. They're the minutes of the body itself. It's not necessarily that you personally participated in it. So it's the council's minutes. You do have that ability to do that. So if you were present in the council chamber for the first portion of that, you do have a basis to determine whether or not those do reflect the minutes of that council.
Thank you for the clarification.
In that case, you're fine with it? Okay. Anybody else want to pull anything or discuss anything?
No.
In that case, can I have a motion to accept the consent items? Choked you up, did it?
Move to approve.
Can I have a second, please?
Second. I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brown. Yes. Councilmember Claudia Rona.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Rona.
Yes.
Mayor Infante.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right. Ms. Clerk, if you would read us the next agenda item, please.
Discussion and possible action regarding modifications to regulations during drought conditions.
Staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, members of the public. My name is Jose Acosta. I'm the utility director here for the city of Solvang. Tonight, we'll be discussing possible modification to the language for the drought ordinance. At the June 11th meeting, the council adopted a resolution setting parameters for increased rates and penalties applicable to the Stage 2 of the city's drought regulations. That we had to enter Stage 2 based on the governor of California sent out an executive order which required cities and water service agencies to reduce usage by 20% at that time. Staff reviewed the data used for compilation of the drought regulations per city code and recommended a minor change in the language at that time, which was to change the benchmark year. At that time, we were using fiscal year 1920. We recommended using calendar year 2019 as we had COVID during 2020. Council approved that change in the benchmark years for the drought regulations as well. Couple things I wanted to point out. The resolution also set a 20% reduction in single-family residential usage, and that was based off calendar year 2020. During the rate study for 2021, it was noticed that the average usage for single-family customers was 18 HCF. So with the 20% reduction, it came out to 14 HCF. So that was the benchmark for single-family residential. As a reference for water usage for single-family residents, we compiled the gallons per day per capita usage for single-family residents. We didn't incorporate any of the other classes because we didn't want to skew that information, as single-family residents are our largest user group within the city. We took the 18 HCF, multiplied that by 748 gallons to give us our total usage, assumed a 4-person per household for the consumption as well. We divided that by 30, and we came up with 112 gallons per day per capita. As you can see in the staff report, the way that stacks up against the national average of 75 gallons per day per capita and the state average of 48 gallons per day per capita, the single-family residential usage in Solvang is higher than those two figures. Also included in the staff report are figures for production and consumption for water years 2012 through 2022. I do want to point out that in 2015, the water usage for production and consumption did drop substantially. That was a dry year. We started getting the word out for higher conservation efforts. The city responded, and as you can see, those numbers did drop. I also want to point out that since 2015, the numbers have slightly been increasing each year. So the conservation efforts were strong in 2015. We started using more water after that as well, with probably city growth, maybe more tourism, but also maybe less conservation as well. The second chart points out the usage based off the benchmark years that are in the ordinance. As you can see, single-family residential, we compared 2021 to 2022, and you can see that there was about 11.29% drop for single-family residential usage. So that's a good number, but it does not meet the 20% benchmark that we're looking for. The other classes, as you could see, the benchmark year was 2019, so we compare the numbers from 2019 to 2022. There was drop in most of those. The highest one was the industrial. They did meet the benchmark of 20%, and they actually reduced by 23.11%. Also attached to the staff report is a spreadsheet with water consumption data from years 2019 through 2022. And it's broken down by class and usage of each class. Included in this information are, you can see the month-by-month usage per class for the last 4-year period. And you can see each comparison represents the usage increase or decrease based on the benchmarks. And the consumption comparisons based on the 3-month period, penalties were put on hold. So you could see that the usage during that time, if it increased or decreased during those 3 months, that the last council put the hold on the penalty fees. I do want to point out that the city's water supply is primarily derived from, we have city wells, we have a couple river wells, we use state water allocations based on what's allocated for the state, and we do have an option to purchase water from ID1. This past year, the state allocated only 5% of our allotment, which is a total of 1,500 acre feet. We received 125 acre feet. Sorry, 75 acre feet for a 5% allocation. And we lost the river wells based off an agreement that we entered into from March through September of this year based off of the parameters within that agreement. We did do our best to ensure that we maintained the other wells, ran the other wells within the city to meet the demands of the city while purchasing minimal water from ID1, which comes at a higher price tag. The DWR, Department of Water and Reclamation, did anticipate a dry winter, and they were anticipating a 5% allocation for this coming year as well. We haven't gotten any updates on if that allocation is going to change, so at this time we are still at 5% allocation, which is 75 acre feet coming into this next year, calendar year 2023, for our state water allocation. The city did, the staff did do a good job of monitoring our usage of state water, and we actually are experiencing hopefully a carryover of approximately 290 acre feet from last year for our state water allocations. So we should have close to about 365 acre feet this year of state water available to us. Now, that is not enough to meet our normal demands from state water, but it will be used wisely as well. So the information shared and provided are given to give background on the production capabilities of the city infrastructure and allotments, to clarify on demand and consumption figures. Also attached to the staff report are the previous resolution and exhibits detailing the Stage 2 drought restrictions, so that way we understand what's entailed in the drought restrictions for Stage 2. It also lists the penalties that were associated with Stage 2 drought penalties. Previous council action had placed a hold on all penalties for the final 3 months of 2022 and had directed staff to bring this back at the beginning of this year for further clarification, discussion, and direction from City Council. A few suggestions that are included in the staff report for council to consider, which you're not limited to, you guys can consider anything you'd like, are removing the financial penalties within the drought ordinance. This will maintain the restrictions and suggested usages, but it will not allow for any penalties to be applied. Second one is change the penalty structure within the drought restrictions. Setting different penalty amounts or structures in place would reduce the amount of financial burden on a consumer for higher consumption, but maintain the restrictions in place, which would help reduce water consumption. Then another suggestion would be review and modify the restrictions within the drought policy and provide staff with direction to modify the municipal code. So just reviewing it overall, coming up with some suggestions on your own and providing those to staff. Consider modifying the penalty and benchmark structure for smaller businesses, as that was a major concern. We had smaller businesses who have one bathroom in their facility, don't use very much water. Their normal average usage is, say, 4 HCF. There's no way that they would be able to meet that 20% demand. One suggestion would be to maybe set the same benchmark that we have for single-family residential units, is if they're below the 14 HCF, they would not meet the penalties as well. Also, something that is included in the staff report was brought to our attention by a member of the public, which is council could consider adopting language including the structure of single-family residential which has an ADU on the property. So the question was brought to staff, If I have a single-family residential lot and I build an ADU, am I still limited to that 18 HCF or 14 HCF with the 20% reduction? So that's something that council could consider as well, and adding that language to the ordinance as well. I do want to point out to council that anything that's recommended, discussed, or directed towards staff must be brought back to a future council meeting for approval, and it must be adopted by a resolution by first and second reading as well. So that concludes my staff report. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the council?
I just wanted to bring the attention back to the figure that we came up with, how much water we use per capita. So my understanding is that, so per capita in the city of Solvang, we use 112 gallons. Each person uses 112 gallons. How
day.
per day?
Yes.
Per day. Somehow we use nearly 3 times the amount of water that the average person uses statewide?
That's correct.
Okay. And to get this figure, we're just talking about single-family units. Is that right? We're not talking, this doesn't take commercial accounts into consideration?
That is correct. And one thing I do want to point out is that the range for usage within the city was from 2 HCF a month all the way up to some customers using 165 HCF a month. So the average, based off the rate study, was 18 HCF per single-family consumer. And so that's what we use, is the 18 HCF and assumed a 4-person household. So those figures could be skewed. If you have less people, you're using more water. If you have more people, then you're probably using a little less water. And again, that's based off the average, not your actual usage. We have customers who use 30 to 40 units with 2 people in a household. And that's primarily used on irrigation when you review their reports as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or
Yeah,
questions?
I
mean,
have a
not
lot
comments.
I have some comments or some questions. Just I want to point out a couple of things. The multifamily residential classification is the one class that has no reduction at all. Every other class has taken heed to the drought condition and even responded to the penalties. But the MFR has actually increased by 12%. And digging into that data, Jose, it made me want to ask the question, can we just get an average increase or decrease on water usage for the second half of the years that we're measuring change, right, the deltas? Because we're doing it different for SFRs versus the rest of the classes. So we're doing 2019 versus 2020. But the point is, I'd like to understand and gain the insight of does the user community at large respond to the penalties and the drought conditions? And even when we remove the penalties, did they continue to respond? Because you pointed out the community did respond. When we were in very serious drought in 2015 and 2016, the data shows it. We were at our lowest consumption in the last decade, right? At the last point of our most severe drought. And peak consumption was in 2012 and 2013. So overall, over the last decade, the city has come down overall. So I have faith in the city that we're going to respond and continue to reduce. But I'd like to see some data that just says that. And then I want to revisit the data where, when we first introduced the penalties to the city, we haven't restated or revisited how many people actually experienced the penalties. But in SFRs, we did 3 things in August, I believe, when they all implemented. We increased the rates, we introduced 3 tiers, and we added penalties. It was a stacking of pain for a community that was still in massive inflationary pressure. At that time, we said the single-family residents, 45% of them had realized or experienced the penalties. 60% of the multifamily had gotten penalties, and 58% of the commercial had experienced penalties. I think those are the right data because I took them from the minutes.
Yeah, I don't have that data in front of me, but if you got it from the minutes, then it's accurate. Yes.
Okay, so I think I am highly sensitive to especially when we're suddenly, strangely have more water than we know what to do with, asking for penalties to be reinstated.
If I can ask, we just gotta be careful with saying we have more water than what to do with them.
It's
I
a
know the
strange
lake,
time.
the lake is about to, we're spilling at the lake and we have plenty of, we're refilling our reservoirs, surface water is recovering, but groundwater is treated, replenished a lot differently. And so I just want to remind everyone of that.
No, as far as questions, nothing. I'll make my comments after we've heard from the public. That's all the comments on the board right now, the council? All right, in that case, we'll go to public comment. I have a public comment request from Dennis Beebe. Imagine that.
Dennis Beebe, Solvang, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Jose. Water's our most important issue, and you must confine yourself to what you're going to do with this, the drought regulations. But in fact, water conservation is the most important thing and the most effective thing that people can do. And we're not discussing too much here except a structure. I think penalties, even though we only had a couple months of experience, I don't think negative incentives work. So I don't recommend you consider the options which say, let's diddle with the penalties. I think you should consider the structure of the other part of the structure, and I talked about this last time. I think the low-hanging fruit is the single-family residences, because that's where most of the water goes. And you have one average number that people are supposed to try to beat, the 14 units. Even though the range, as Jose said, goes from, in calendar 20, went from 165 units all the way down to 2 units. And out of that, we picked 14 units. It's unreal, unreasonable, and I think you ought to prorate the single-family residence structure, whatever the structure is, in accordance with the size and the usage of the single-family residences. That's, a single average number, one size fits all, doesn't work.
Thank you, Dennis. I have a request from Mr. Vern Madsen.
Vern Madsen, I live just outside of Solvang. I have businesses in Solvang, and I have residential properties in Solvang. I cannot vote in Solvang, and that ropes me. That's another issue. I have been around a long time, born and raised here. I can't recall seeing a week like we've just had. But I also realize that one huge rainfall is not going to solve our problem. And you're going to have to deal with that. But I'm here to argue about the inequity of the commercial penalties. I'm an engineer by education. I keep spreadsheets, I build spreadsheets. And when you went to the penalties, it was impossible to come up with a spreadsheet that I could count on. I've got 3 sheets here of okay. It was real simple. I knew exactly what my numbers were, and I could tell if Jennifer, now Mary Ellen, was making a mistake. But God helping, when those penalties went into effect, Jennifer was pulling her hair out, and I would be living at her desk and saying, "My numbers, your numbers, and my numbers disagree." Anyway, let me just give you an example. I had April, May, and June 3 years ago, 2020. I had a building that was sitting empty. I had been changing tenants. I went from the mustard seed, which my wife and I started back in '81, to other tenants that weren't doing too well. And and actually, it sat vacant for quite a bit of time and then there was construction going on. So I got it right here, I got it highlighted. 3 years ago in April, May and June, I had 0, 0, and 4 units for the mustard seed. Okay, now Aaron Peterson, who runs the Breckies, is doing about 30 units a month. 80% of 0 is 0, 80% of 4 is like 1. I'm going to have a penalty of about 29 or 30 units doubled, because if I can't make that 80%, it's doubled. And if I can't make it the next month, it's $1,000. That's insane. You're going to put restaurants out of business. I mean, you've got to come up with some kind of a fair, equitable system for determining what a customer is going to pay. And what you've got right now is just all over the ballpark.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments. Okay, that's everybody that's turned to slip-ins. Anybody else want to say something on this particular item, agenda item, in the room? If not, okay, on the Zoom, Julie?
There we go. Hi, this is Julie Glendenning. I'm a resident of Solvang. And one of the things that that we are working on currently is putting an ADU in our yard. And I would like to comment on Jose's alternatives that the council could consider. And one of the things that he stated is the council could consider adopting language, including a structure for single-family resident accounts with an ADU on the property. I would really like to ask that the council review that, consider putting something on a future agenda to really discuss that, because the water department is kind of at a loss as to how to handle ADUs. There's nothing specific. I know that there used to be a way that there was a factor that they would use, but nobody seems to know what that is with staff turnover. The state and the city are looking for housing. This would help meet the requirements. So putting in an ADU I see it as a very good thing, obviously. I hope that the city sees that. I just don't want to be adversely penalized because as a single family resident and now having what would be 2 residences on the property, we'd end up, like Vern was saying, with mad penalties that don't necessarily make sense. So I would really like to ask the council to set this up as an agenda item and discuss how these additional dwelling units could be handled from the water perspective, because I think that residents should have more input. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Do we have anybody else on Zoom that wanted to talk? I don't see any other hands. No? In that case, let's bring it back to the council for comments and any kind of motion you might have. Let's start with comments. Anybody?
I'm just wondering if it would be possible to set the allowance, if we're gonna call it that, based on the amount of people that live in a residence or in a space rather than what type of residence it is, just because it doesn't make sense to have the same amount of demand for a place that just because it's the same type of residence when the amount of people is obviously what affects the usage. So that is one thing that I think we could consider. Second, we focus a lot on asking people to conserve water, but I haven't seen any brochures or, instructions on how to do that. So I think we could do a better job of educating the public on what they can do to help the city in its conservation efforts.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I'd have to agree with a lot of the comments. I would rather see a reward system for saving than a penalty for not saving water. And I think that can be implemented. And I'm also, I think it's to pull out that average of 14 units or a four-person household is really quite dubious, because it needs to have more accuracy to it, and there needs to be a better, as you were saying, was it number of people per household? How else can we do this besides average? Because you said yourself in your staff report, it varied from 2 units to 130-plus units per residence. And to pick a 14 is somewhat, like I said, dubious. So that's what I'd like to see from staff. And to Julie's comment, this is a agenda item that we're discussing now. So I see it to that comment. We are in the process of discussing. This is an agenda item.
Right.
And so I think that satisfies her concern in that regard. So that's my comment.
Yeah. I believe she was going to want a little bit more, and we'll get into that in a minute if we will. Did you want to make any comments, Ms. Rona?
I genuinely think this deserves a lot of work and attention, because we clearly, we haven't quite gotten it right for the businesses or for the residential community, which I think that's fine. We just need to accept to do the work and maybe revisit some of these structures, even some of the classifications, anticipate coming classifications like ADU style, or where they fit, if we would just classify them as multifamily, or how we would treat them. So some, new perspective on how we're approaching these things, I think, is probably should be put on the agenda and on the table.
Thank you. A couple comments from my part. I would agree completely that we need to go back and revisit how we address all of these things. The commercial, I think Mr. Madsen's comment about making a commercial business that has one toilet, give them a 14 HCF limit and stay underneath that, and there's no worries. I think that's perfectly valid. We've got jewelry stores and retail stores that don't, there's no way they can cut back 20%. Second, I think, I'm pretty sure Mr. Acosta has built a spreadsheet that people can use to determine the water usage that I believe, Jose, it's been put on the website?
We're working on finalizing it and cleaning it up a bit.
Okay.
And that was in collaboration with Mayor Infante as well. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, all right, so one of the problems that we have is you've got, typically around here from the studies I've seen in the past, 70% of the water usage is going to landscaping. Okay? So if you're doing 165 units, I don't care how many people are in your house, that is not going on in the house. That's going out in the yard, or you've got a leak, or you've got a problem, or I don't know what you're doing. Maybe you've got anyway. But I like the idea of a reward versus a penalty. Maybe we should look into that as an alternative. The 14 HCF does not seem unreasonable to me. As Jose suggested, this has been bothering me a lot. You heard me complain about it at the last meeting. And I think we needed to understand what the water usage was. We had a gentleman stand up and say he's got 5 people in his house and he's got penalized X number of hundreds of dollars extra, and I couldn't understand that. So we started building this model in an Excel spreadsheet. You put in how many people, and then you determine how many showers you take a day, and so on and so forth, multiply the days out and everything else, turn it into HCF. 5 people don't use 14 HCF, or they just use it. So that means that if he was going way over that, he's doing landscaping. And drive around here and look at some of these beautiful grass yards, and you know that it's not all going to the users of the house. It's going to the landscaping. So we have to do something about that. By the way, one of the things we are doing is if you want to change out your grass yard and put in drought tolerant, we'll help you pay for it. Okay, now, there's a procedure to this. If you've already done it, we're not going to pay you. It's too late. But if you're going to start, and you put all the plan together, and you got the bills and everything else, and you send it to us, I think it's up to $1,000 that we'll.
I believe it's 2,000.
$2,000, thank you. That we will help you with replacing your grass with a drought-tolerant landscape. Okay, this is back to what Councilmember Brown was saying, is let's do it as a reward rather than a penalty. We'll help you. Okay, so I would like to give it back to, I would move that we go have staff take it back. Address these issues individually. That is, commercial businesses that have one toilet or two toilets or something like that, move them into the 14 HCF. Let's get that spreadsheet out there so that people can determine what their water usage should be based on the number of people in their house. And this would work with an ADU also. If you've got 4 people in your house and got 2 people in an ADU, that's 6 people. Put 6 into this formula and it'll show you how many HCF, hundreds of cubic feet of water you're supposed to be or should be using. It's really hard to make that exact because if you've got an old toilet, you could be getting 6 gallons of flush. If you've got a new toilet, it's 1.3 gallons of flush. So it's difficult to come up with a perfect model, but the one that we're working on, I think, will help a lot. So with that, I'd like to move that we table this at this point in time and let the staff come back. I'm sorry.
Well, I might suggest.
Please.
What we used to do is create ad hoc subcommittees of the council. So 2 of you could then help develop the changes that you think the full council may want to consider. Rather than Jose keep taking stabs at it and bring it back to you.
That's a great
You
idea.
get some ownership.
great idea.
into it. That's typically how we were doing things when I was here before, is we'd create an ad hoc subcommittee and just for that purpose, to review the rates and penalties.
Great suggestion.
That makes sense. I'll make a motion to create a subcommittee. Go ahead,
But we
Jose.
do, well, first, in the motion, we're going to need to continue to, if you want to hold off on the penalties, they're going to go back into effect because you only abate them for 3 months. So you need to include, if you want to continue that extension, in your motion.
Sorry, Brad, just say that again. The motion should exclude the.
The motion should
Or-
include if you're going to continue to not charge the penalties.
I'll say it the way it's intended. Okay, so that's kind of reverse logic. Confused me. So I'll make a motion to continue with the waive of penalties on the water rates and create a subcommittee to work with the staff to include some council members and the water department to revisit and reestablish our water classification, our future treatment, and our plan for education and incentives for continued water conservation. Thank you.
If I could just jump in, if the subcommittee is just made of the council members, staff will be staffing that. Instead of making it a formal committee including staff members, which would be subject to the Brown Act, you just want to make it the 2 members of the council the council.
So there's 2 people from the council, that's the committee, and having the staff support it
Got it.
doesn't put them under Brown Act. So modified.
We take the lawyer's advice.
Do I have a second?
So
I'll
modify
second
that.
it.
Thank you.
Got a motion and a second. If we could get a roll call vote, please. I'm sorry, wait a minute.
On the motion itself, forgot the microphone. On the motion itself, would you entertain putting a deadline on that moratorium or the delay of penalty? Because I think having a deadline will create additional action and urgency for this matter.
That's fair. The intent to create a subcommittee should get us to more productive to the end state, right? As opposed to doing every other report and exchange for a council meeting. Let's just put our heads down and get it done. So what's a reasonable amount of time? A month? 2 months?
3 months.
3? Jose?
Well, you did 3 months the first time. I mean, that gives you the cushion, gives
Okay.
you the time to work with it. And then I think the attorney's going to comment on the ad hoc committee after you've used
Can-
the motion, so.
How much should we define how much work we do? Do we meet twice a week? Do we need to go that detailed? Okay.
I think ultimately it'll be up to the subcommittee how often they feel they need to meet and what information they get. But if you put an outside time limit of, say, for example, 90 days to report back to council, that will give staff an opportunity to put together the necessary information for the ad hoc subcommittee.
Yeah, my objective was just to, on the penalty part of it, we may have to extend it yet again, but I want to have a set time for the penalty.
That would be the 90 days.
That would be the 90
I-
days.
another 90
And then we'll
days.
make a recommendation.
I just want that into the.
Or the
into
staff will.
Motion, please.
Okay, yeah, I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Arona.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona.
Yes.
Mayor Infante.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Now we need to appoint the two people to this particular group. Anybody like to volunteer? Okay, we have two winners. So that'd be Mr. David Brown and Miss Elizabeth Arona. That's our committee. Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, next agenda item, please.
Discussion and possible action regarding the award of a construction contract with Specialty Construction, Inc. for the Friedensburg Canyon Waterline Replacement Project, number PW171, for the amount not to exceed $762,408, and authorize the mayor to execute on behalf of the city.
Questions of the, staff report?
Yes, sir. So for fiscal year 22-23, there's a capital improvement plan for upgrading of water main lines throughout the city and its continual projects throughout the CIP. We've identified Friedensburg Canyon in need of moving that water main line. It's currently sitting on the banks of the creek of Friedensburg Canyon of Adobe Creek. And throughout the years, there's been issues where we've lost fire hydrants, we've lost valve, we've lost service lines going across that creek because of floods, just as we've experienced this last week. So what we're looking to do is award this contract to move the water line away from the creek bed out into the street where it'll be more protected, the valves will be protected, the service lines will be replaced going across the creek, and we would be less susceptible to breakage or possible contamination if the water line were to break in a storm. Included in the project are also replacements of two isolation valves on Osterstedt and Vesterstedt. Sorry for that. We have several valves throughout the city that are not functional, operational, and so we need to replace those two valves. Those have been identified as high priority valves, and that's included in this project as well. We released the notice to invitation of bids on October 18th of this past year, 2022, and we received approximately 10 bids for the project. The bid amounts range from $762,000 to approximately $1.33 million. Attached for your review is a copy of the detailed bid results, listing from the top three bidders. You can see the detailed bids for them. At the bottom of the sheet is the remaining bids, and we didn't list their detailed bids because they were out of range, and we figured the top three would be in contention for this. Staff reviewed all bids and found that the apparent low bid as submitted by Specialty Construction, Inc. to be complete and responsive. And the bid as received is within the budgeted amount for the capital improvement program project within the fiscal year of 22-23. Staff recommends awarding the contract to complete this project to Specialty Construction, Inc. in the amount of $762,408. I'm available for any questions.
Questions?
Jose, Specialty Construction, Inc., where are they located?
They're located in San Luis Obispo.
Thank you. We didn't have a local contractor that could.
We did have a local contractor. They were quite higher than Specialty. Local contractors, local businesses do have a 5% decrease in their price if they are a local business, and they still will within, way out of the range of the top three. You're welcome.
Jose, have we worked with specialty construction before? Do we have in the city of Solvang experience with this?
In the city of Solvang, I'm not sure, but I have worked with specialty construction while I was with the attorney shaking his head, so they have done projects for the city. But I have also, oh, sorry.
Okay.
I have worked with them at the CSD in San Ynez. They did a major project for us out there, and they did a great job. I was impressed with their workmanship and their follow-up.
Question for, where does this water line start and stop? Is this going from Chalk Hill all the way out? It's Friedensburg Canyon, right?
So Friedensburg Canyon, it goes all the way from Chalk Hill all the way to Viborg, past Viborg a bit as well.
How far past Viborg does it go?
Goes, I can't tell you off the top of my head.
To the city limits, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, College Canyon.
Are we going to cut into the asphalt to bury this line?
Yes, we will be encroaching into the street. So there will be some traffic concerns. We will post a couple weeks in advance that traffic may be minimized or actually cut off through that route based on what construction is being done that day. They are required to provide traffic mitigation plans as well with their bids, and they are required to set up the traffic delineation.
Excellent.
And we will notify emergency services such as fire and police as well when we have those road closures or obstructions.
Now, Jose, you mentioned that you're going to, when we have the road opened up, we'll include the future planning for wastewater line as well?
So the placement of this water line is placed so that when we do replace the sewer line or move it away, it will still remain within the required distances by state requirements.
Which makes me ask the question, did we take a position some time ago, previous council, on anytime we open up roads and opportunity for infrastructure change, we would include broadband infrastructure at the same time?
There was a discussion and a comment made on that of including broadband in there. The one concern with the water line is that it is shallow, and when you go to make repairs, if you even nick that broadband line, you cause severe damage, and the price to replace that's very high.
Okay, in that case, I have no speaker slips for this particular item. We have a hand raised. Please come up, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I just have one comment about specialty construction, and specialty construction just recently completed the PCPA project, and they're very good at being the low bid. I would urge you, before you approve this, to either speak to Chris Nielsen or Mary Ann at Theater Fest to see if specialty construction, what the extras are. Because I know a lot of contractors will come in, they'll be the lowest price, and then they bring up the extras as they go along with the job. So I would urge the council to talk to the Theater Fest. And I'm not disparaging whatsoever specialty. They may be the best and the lowest price. But before you make this decision, I would urge you all to talk to the people at PCPA just to see where it wound up. Because they were the low bid for the Theater Fest, but I don't know, and I don't think anybody else knows, but I just think it would be prudent to find out if they came in with $300,000 in extras, which is very, very common in the construction industry, to see where they wound up as far as where they started. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I can actually add to that. I'm on the Theater Fest board, and they actually came in under budget and on time. So
That answered that one, huh? Yes. All right, is there any public comment, any other public comment? Any public comment on Zoom? It doesn't appear we have. We'll bring it back to the council for any last comments or a motion.
I would move to approve the contract.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brown. Aye. Councilmember Claudia Arona.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona.
Yes.
Mayor Infante.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Look forward to working with that ad hoc committee on the water conservation efforts.
Okay, Madam Clerk, if you would read the next agenda item, please.
Discussion and possible action regarding city council vacancy appointment.
Well, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, there's not much of a staff report. You guys asked us at the last meeting to accept applications. 4 applicants have applied. I believe the intent of the process was to allow them some time to speak at this meeting and then take public comment and then bring it back to the council for their comment and consideration on choosing a new member. So I think those are the basic rules you might want to follow.
Questions, anybody?
Have all the applicants met the minimum requirements?
So the motion from the last meeting was take applications. When we put that online, we actually added cover letter and resume. I don't know that they all did both of those, but everyone did submit the application, which is what the council did vote on at last meeting.
Thank you.
But one person didn't submit all 3 that were requested.
I'll ask the city clerk, was that?
I believe that's correct. Not all did.
Because all of what was submitted was all in the agenda packet, right?
Everything
So
that
the
was
public
submitted
could
was in the
review it.
agenda packet.
And we had one person that didn't put in a resume or a letter of intent. Okay.
Correct. They qualified as voting residents of the city.
All right. Okay. So let's hear from the public. Sorry. Thank you. I apologize. Let's hear from the candidates first, and then we'll hear from the public. So, let's see. Who wants to start?
They're listed in alphabetical order on the.
Let's go.
All right, we'll do it that way then, if you wish. I don't have them on this. Where is that?
Robert Clark, right here.
I got Robert Clark
It's-
first?
Well, actually.
There it
if
is,
we-
yeah.
Yeah, it's Elamine.
Mr. Clark, if you'd like to present,
Thank you. Are we at a 3-minute rule?
I would prefer that if you can.
And I appreciate that. And I think that the cover letter was directed towards me, and I have copies of emails that I sent to the city manager and the city clerk that, where's my light? Not on yet. The city, thank you, Mr. Mayor and council, and congratulations, by the way, thank you. I had sent an email to the city clerk and the city manager with my application. I thought my application was going to the city directly, and I said, because obviously I was on the council for 4 years, the city knows me, and I said in my email, do you need a separate cover letter and resume? And then I received a response from the city manager and the city clerk, and there was no description of, yes, we need that. So I assumed, because it was just going to the city, and I'm known by the city, that that was the case. So I apologize for that. So quickly, my name is Robert Clark. I've been a resident of Solvang for 17 years. I've been on the city council. I've been a mayor pro tem. I've been on the planning commission. I've been the chairman of the planning commission. I've been the vice president of the Danish Brotherhood. I'm a lecturer at the Old Mission Santa Ynez. This is aside from city council business, I am the Solvang representative for the Santa Barbara County Library Advisory Council. So I'm the representative that gets to meet once a month with the whole county on how we handle our libraries. My ultimate goal is a state-of-the-art library in Solvang, but that's a long-term goal. I was the vice president of Pony Baseball. I was the president of the aquatics program at the high school for the boys and girls aquatics programs for 4 years. I was on the board of the Santa Barbara Contractors Association. My kids have both been through Solvang School, grown up here. My daughter volunteered at the library for years. My son volunteered for Hidden Wings for years. My wife volunteered at Solvang School. Service is what we and I do. Experience matters. The state is going through a really, really difficult time right now. We had a $97 billion surplus a year ago. We have a $23 billion deficit now. If you're looking for anything coming from the state, you're not going to get it because the state doesn't have the money right now. So experience matters. My appointment to the council would double the experience that the council currently has. As you well know, and Council Member Elizabeth Arona and Mr. Brown, you've been in your first closed session on your first day. So much of what happens in the city and what is so important to the taxpayers of the city happens in closed session, whether it's union negotiation, contracts, litigation. We can't rely on the state. We have to rely on ourselves and how we can tighten our belts. And I've gotten pretty much of a name for myself for being really, really fiscally responsible. It is what I am. I'm pretty libertarian and everything else, but we have to rely upon ourselves. I wish we would have floated a bond for any big capital improvement programs 2 years ago, because municipal bonds obviously are not a way to get anything built in a city right now with the interest rates the way they are. Interest rates have gone up 7 times in the last year. They're at the highest they've been since 2007. So I almost feel like we're an island in Solvang. That was 3 minutes? Wow. Okay, love you.
Now you know what it feels.
Nobody else shut up after 3 minutes before.
Mr. Clark, the four of you, I think we can allow a little bit of extra time to speak.
You know what? I don't want to break the rules just for me. I just think that service is my passion. It's what I do. I really enjoyed 4 years. I got beat by somebody who went to more doorsteps than I did. Hats off to you. But I cherish the time that I had. And the one thing I will say is I've kept in touch, and I do keep in touch, with 30 or 40 representatives from other cities similar to Solvang up and down the state. Between that, Cal Matters, if any of you have discussed or looked on Cal Matters, it's a nonprofit. There's so much information out there that helps cities. And I think that I'm a really good tool for helping Solvang. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Miss Denise Elamine, if you would, please.
Hello, my name is Denise Elamine. I'm applying for the open Solvang City Council vacancy. My husband and I have resided in Solvang District 1 for the past 9 years. I ran for a seat on the Solvang City Council in 2018. 4 years later, not one of the previous city council members elected in 2018 are currently serving as Solvang City Council members today. In 4 short years, the voters of Solvang have decided to change the representation for all Solvang residents. We now have 2 new city council members, welcome, who will serve the board for a 4-year term, and 1 city council member who has 2 years left to serve. Last year, the laws were changed, and the at-large voting system was disbanded. Solvang had to change to districts in order to allow all of the Solvang residents to be represented on the city council. The previous council had the choice of letting the Solvang voters decide who would fill the vacant council seat that was vacated when Afani ran, and his seat had 2 additional years, and he ran for mayor. This happens every 4 years. The previous council decided to take this important issue from the voting public and residents of City of Solvang and allow the newly elected council's only 4 members to make this huge decision regarding our 5th and final vacant council seat. This is currently a city council representative. There is currently a city council representative sitting tonight for District 2, 3, and 4. If you follow the new map and district guidelines of each of the city council's addresses, District 1 is the only district that does not have a representative on this current city council. I am proposing that when this 4-person panel, current city council, decides who chooses for this vacancy, that the District 1 candidates be given top priority for consideration for this council seat. I am applying for this city council seat because I live in District 1 and I am able to represent and improve the lives for all Solvang residents. I am committed to working with the current council members to achieve fair and equitable water and sewage rates, and fiscal and budgetary accountability and budgetary transparency. Some may argue that the choice between a special election and city council appointment is a no-brainer. Special elections cost money, approximately $10,000 to $30,000. However, what's lost in this calculation is the democracy for all is beautiful and inclusive and inherently complicated and costly. I argue that the price we pay is small in comparison to those who have fought and labored for its survival. In closing, there are existential crises that deserve our immediate and collective attention. An outdated and failing sanitation system, an egregious water deal that siphons money and drips water in return, just to name a few. We must include and educate all residents regarding the future of Solvang. We must include the voting public when we are making deals that will cause financial hardships to our residents. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Ms. Louise Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Infante and the esteemed council members. I'm Louise Smith and appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about my desire to fill the vacant seat on this city council. As all of you know, I ran last November for the seat in District 3 along with Mr. Brown, with whom I have great respect and do congratulate him on his win. However, this win was by a small margin, and my desire to serve on this city council has not wavered. I know you have my completed and required documents which this city council requested, so I'm not going to read these to you, and I promise I will be brief. To paraphrase the author Peggy Klaus, my friends say I have reinvented myself more times than anyone they know, and they don't know if it's because I have the attention of a gnat or I'm truly interested in so many different things. My response to my friends and to you tonight is that I can assure you I do care about many different things, and in regards to this community, I care about water independence, affordable housing, responsible growth, and most importantly, just listening to and really hearing what the amazing citizens of Solvang have to say and understanding their concerns and issues, and to being part of the solutions that will be best for all of us and to help move this city forward. I've worked in San Ynez Valley for almost 20 years and have called Solvang my home for over 13 years. I care deeply about this community. I have to admit I'm a better listener than I am a talker. When a situation or concern is presented, I prefer to think about it, to think about all possible sides, to think about the impact on everybody involved, and then educate myself and do as much research as possible to understand what's truly going on before voicing my opinions or ideas. This may take a while. I don't react with emotion and prefer to come at the problem informed and to consider what's best for all through communications with those involved and by asking a lot of questions. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Louise. And Mr. Jack Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I appreciate this opportunity. I'm not going to go through my whole resume in detail. Just a couple things. I'm an engineer by training. I've been a citizen in Solvang for 22 years, was a small business owner here for 13 years. I've got experience in management positions in industry and county government, and working with federal government as well. And I feel that that all brings some unique experience that I can contribute to the city council, especially as a result of my 13 years on the planning commission, and both as a member and 4 years as the chair. And so I recognize what the problems are, the concerns are. I'm familiar with what the regulations and policies and procedures of the city are. And I would like to just mention a couple things that nobody else mentioned, because I can say I agree with them. One is general plan update. I think that's the one of the number one things, if not the number one thing, that the city council is going to have to handle, hopefully, this year. And then the follow-on to that of making sure that our rules, regulations, and policies are set up so that as we go on for the next 10 years, we're not hamstringing ourselves. The second thing is hiring a new city manager. We have an interim manager, and I feel that my experience in management as hiring a manager, hiring people at all levels would be a great asset for that. So with that, I thank you very much, and we'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. All right, at this point, I guess we'll start taking public comment. I will ask you, please, to keep your comments to 3 minutes. So when the light turns red, please go sit down. Okay, let me start off with Lee Rosenberg. Oh, he's going to have a tough time stopping at 3 minutes.
Hey, guys.
Let me ask one more thing before you get started. Your name and if you live in the city of Solvang.
Lee Rosenberg, I do not live in the city, but you still haven't given me the cash for pounding the stakes in for your election signs. So we'll talk about that later. Can I go off the clock for a minute? Because something has been said earlier about human trafficking that requires a bit of expansion, and I think I can bring that to you.
I'm going to have to say no. We right now have this subject at hand, and we'll stick with this if you would, please.
Okay. There's no one I know of who is more qualified for this task than Bob Clark, who once again should occupy a seat on this council. He's a highly cultured, exceedingly experienced candidate who has an intimate knowledge of Solvang and the San Ynez Valley, having lived here for 17 plus years and raised a fine and successful family. What Solvang needs and will always need is someone who has an extensive background in business and finance and worldwide business, and the worldwide business that Bob has that he now brings to his current occupation in the lumber industry. He's invested heavily of his time and resources, not only as a past member of the council, but also as a past chairman of the Planning Commission. He has participated heavily in the community, which is critical, as a board member, as a coach, as a fundraiser, and as a volunteer for AYSO, the SYV Pony Baseball, YMCA, Danish Days, Danish Brotherhood, SY Performing Arts, Santa Barbara Contractors Association, Youth America, and I could go on and bore you. I doubt that you'll find that kind of energy and commitment in any of the current candidates whom I speak of with respect. Experience has been mentioned, and I think it's the most important attribute of a council member. Deep knowledge of the finances, businesses, organization, and general needs of the city are of iridescent value to this council and to the city. I'd be very surprised to encounter anyone more experienced and qualified to hold a seat on this council, once again. And while I have respect for all the candidates, I'm willing to assert that none has the personal and experiential assets that Robert will bring to the task. He's well-known, good-humored, and, most importantly, transactional. Personally, I founded and ran a business that was global, with offices and responsibilities around the Western world. The type of partner I always sought to help me grow and execute the tasks before me is exactly embodied in the qualities of Bob Clark. Don't fail to avail yourselves of this valuable leader who is presenting himself, his time, and his wisdom for the city. Thank you. We'll talk about that cash infusion later.
And if you've got a comment on the human trafficking, please send it to me. I would love to see it. It's just not the time now.
Yeah,
You can send it to all of us. It's a public council group.
Something that
Yeah.
the council can do as an aggregate.
Okay. My next speaker comment listing that I have is for Mr. Pete Thompson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Pete Thompson. I live in Solvang, not in the city proper, but I'm also a business owner here in Solvang for the past 30 years. I'm speaking on behalf of Robert Clark again. I've known Robert since he's been here and deal with him on almost a weekly basis. And like it's been reiterated, there's no excuse nor no substitution for experience. Right now I've seen a lot of city councils come and go while I've been here. Some good, some not so good. And with the new council that we have now, it's not taking anything of it, but inexperienced in a lot of issues where Robert knows this stuff inside out. And to take that away from the city, I think would be a huge mistake. And I'd just like to really support Robert. He's a great guy, and I think he'd continue doing an excellent job here at the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My next slip is from Mr. Dennis Beebe. Yeah, again.
Dennis Beebe, the city of Solvang. I'd like to add my endorsement to the many letters you've got and the speakers earlier this evening for Robert Clark. I've seen him in action, and I would call him a skinflint. No, I'd call him a Scrooge when it comes to spending the taxpayers' money, which to me is the most important function a council member can have. He demonstrated it again tonight, but he demonstrated it every time that someone came up with their hand out looking for money from the taxpayer, which you had the authority to approve. So he's very stingy with the taxpayers' money, but that doesn't say he's not a contributor of his own. I've seen him vote no on a lot of proposals to spend money for organizations and people who do good deeds, but he never feels that the taxpayers should be funding good deeds of others. But in the same voting no, he turned around and contributing his own personal funds. So he puts his money where his mouth is. I look forward to seeing him in the council in the future. Oh, and experience is one thing, but what he's done is demonstrated. There's lots of promises, and I compliment all the 4 people who come up, raise their hands, and are willing to serve. But most of this is promises based upon experience elsewhere. Robert Clark has demonstrated what he can do for the taxpayer.
Thank you, Dennis. Next, I have Mr. Hank Homburg. Hank here? Oh, there he is.
Happy New Year, Council. Congratulations on your new seats. And I'd like to first say kudos to everybody who wanted to sit on the council tonight. That's put their name out there. But I am supporting Robert Clark as well. He said it himself. He called himself a tool. So Robert Clark, you're a tool, but in a good way, because he's a tool that you guys can utilize on the dais and get things done. And he has a perspective from the past, the current, and the future that I think is very valuable for all of you on the dais. And also, he's already attended and understands the Brown Act and all those required classes that I guess the other 2 people are going to have to go to and attend. But that's another thing that is a plus in his favor, in my view, is that he's already familiar with how the council works, how the city works, how to get things done. And again, reiterating what the prior speaker said about fiscal responsibility, I think Robert is probably the most fiscal responsible that I've seen on the council since I've been living here. And he's always asking questions about how much does it cost. So with that said, I hope you consider Robert Clark. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My next comment slip is from, I think that says David Brentz.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. It's too bad I only have 20 minutes, but no, just kidding. I too would like to say, add my endorsement for Mr. Clark. I've known Mr. Clark ever since he moved here. We've raised our kids together. I've known Robert through the community and through his service here. And he's always been a stand-up person and man of integrity. I think that one of the things that Robert brings that's a little bit unique and unique perspective is Robert actually did not bring his own private economy with him and to move when he moved here. So Robert actually makes a living here, works in the community, actually works for a small business, but works for a local business to support his family. He's done an excellent job of raising his children. I always think that you can tell a lot about people from their children. You know, you can actually say, oh, I judge your character on the outcome of your children. You know, your children did a great job. You did a great job raising them. And I could say that about Robert. I want to repeat the other speakers' words, but I would say that Robert has a love of public service. He's a good listener. He has a common sense, and he, like all of us, love our little community, and it's a special place. So I would just like to, in closing, say I think Robert would make an excellent choice for that empty seat. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Robin Saraslu, I apologize, I can't read your writing.
Hi, thank you. I'm Robin Saratslev, and I live and vote in Solvang. And I'm supporting Robert Clark because we can trust him. His only agenda is to serve the will of the majority of voters. And I appreciate his past service, and I know I can trust his future service. And I'm usually up here asking for grant money. And so while everybody's saying he's kind of stingy, I think his heart for this community is huge. He's just a wonderful person. He's respectful and kind to everyone, and he goes out of his way to listen to the voters. So whether you agree with him on every topic or not, you know you can go to him and have a really respectful, productive conversation and either get educated or perhaps change his mind if you're lucky. But anyway, I just hope that you'll consider Robert. He's done an excellent job. He's an excellent person, and I just really appreciate him. Thank you, and thank you guys.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Greg Ulrich.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Greg Ulrich, I live at 1520 Janelsa, Solvang. It's right next to the city. I'd like to throw my support in with Robert Clark as well. Know him through his work down there at Nielsen's, and he's going to be a great asset to help you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Justin Rodriguez.
City Council, good evening. My name is Justin Rodriguez. I live in Skip Mesa, and I've been a resident here since 2015, so going on 8 years. And I also came up here to support Robert Clark. Robert was one of the first people I met when I moved to Solvang, and he welcomed me in this town and kind of took me under my wing because I am a contractor, and he helps get materials and stuff out of his business, and he helped me get some stuff that was hard to get recently. So I appreciate that, Robert. And I just think that the city council would be best served with Robert. And one of the things I'd like to say is I remember on Elm Street or Elm Avenue, the residents there wanted to get some speed bumps put in because they wanted to slow the traffic down. And I remember Matt Vanderlinden was the city engineer at the time, and he, being fiscally responsible for the city, said, you know, let's put this on the back burner. You know, I don't know if, but I remember Robert was saying, you know what, these people went out there, they wanted speed bumps, they wanted to slow the traffic down. Why can't we just put the speed bumps down now? And that was my initial gut reaction as well. And then the same thing I mentioned to Jack sitting over there a few minutes ago, when it came to specialty construction, their bid was significantly lower, but I said, just be careful with the low bid because they might slap you with change orders. So Robert came up and spoke his piece with the city. I think he's got good common sense, and I support him very much, and I appreciate his service on this board, and I think the board would be best served reappointing him. He did run, and he shows that he wants to be there, and I think he'd be a good asset for the city. Thank you, guys. Congratulations on the appointments.
Thank you very much. That's all the speaker slips I have. Do we have anybody in the audience that wants to speak that didn't turn in a slip? No, in that case, let's go to Zoom. We have 2 people on Zoom, and I can't read that name. Brad, can you tell me? Who's that? Rebecca Galley. Would you speak, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Am I unmuted? Hi, I'm Rebecca Gowling, and I'm a small business owner in Solvang. And I'm going to be preaching to the choir here, I guess, because I'm going to put my comments in for Robert Clark. Robert is a great guy. Lee Rosenberg and everybody else that spoke has actually said it all about Robert. He just really is the right person for the job. And I'm just going to add one more comment that he is, he's got a passion and a deep love for Solvang. I would like to ask you guys to vote for Robert. I think he's the right person for the job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jerry.
Yes. My name is Jerry Rounds. I do not live in the city, but I'm a part of the community that frequents Solvang. And I really am impressed with what people have said about Robert Clark. I'm not going to really add very much because other people said it so well. But I also think, just to add, he understands the importance of supporting the cultural heritage that Solvang is. And the fact that he's so well connected with the machine that makes Solvang work, I think is irreplaceable. So that's my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I can't read the next one. Bobby? Bobby, can you want to talk?
Yes. Yeah, my name is Bobby McGinnis. I also am a small business owner in Solvang. I do not live in Solvang. I live in Santa Barbara. And the road conditions have kept me from the auditorium tonight. But I'm also supporting Robert Clark for city council. Robert, I think it's kind of unique. He has a unique position in Solvang because he is working at a lumber yard where he services not the tourists that come into the community, but the people who actually live in Solvang. And the people of Solvang, Robert only lost by 11 votes on an election day that was pouring with rain, where we had ICX machines not plugged in and lines out the door for people waiting to use those machines. I'm not saying that anything was fraudulent or wrong with the election. I'm just saying that given different circumstances, he may be already on that city council. So I highly recommend Robert to be on the city council. And I sure hope you guys can all agree that you'd like to continue his service for the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe next is Sheila Benedict. Sheila?
Yes, that's me. I know Robert from a lot of places. I was the archivist at the mission for 18 years. In fact, I'm the one that trained him to be a lecturer there. I know Robert's children. I know his wife. I know the years he spent on the city council. He's a great about a few little political things, but I think he's an asset on the city council, and he's an asset to the city and to the wider community, and I certainly do hope that he is appointed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other hands. Do we have anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I don't have a hand button on my screen here. This is Jim Richardson.
Okay, so down at the never mind. I won't train you now, but yes, Jim.
I'm not here to endorse any particular candidate. I think that the 4 applicants are probably would do the job very well, but I have a concern. is that the four current council members and including the mayor will select somebody to fill that vacancy. You have to remember that the incumbent in a seat usually gets reelected. Well, except in the case of Robert Clark the last time. The fact is that it gets reelected, so you may be selecting somebody that will be in office for 6 years rather than 2, and not giving a fair shake to other people that might want to run for the District 1 vacancy. So so just keep that in the back of your mind that you may be nominating somebody for 6 years instead of 2. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Is there anybody else that wanted to speak? Looks like we have somebody on the phone.
Yes, this is Nelda Martin. I live in Los Alamos, and I am calling on behalf of Mr. Clark. He, and it's been said, but I just have to reiterate, he knows Solvang and its citizens. He is the definition of common sense. He's practical and honestly current. I mean, so current on all the issues. And we do have a lot of issues. And I think that he will hit the ground running, and that's what you need. You need somebody that's going to join you and go with you in the right direction for Solvang. So please consider Mr. Clark for that position. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else. Do we have anybody else up there, Brad? We got Jerry before, didn't we? I think Jerry spoke. His hand has just been left up. Yes. Talk to me later, Jim. I'll teach you how to raise your hand.
I'd get it back.
Okay, there's a couple things before we take it back to the council. We need to explain a little bit about what Mr. Richardson was saying. The position is to fulfill the last 2 years of my 4-year term as a councilman. I was elected at large, so legally we can elect or appoint, anybody in the city. But if we appoint somebody from District 3 or 4, they can serve 2 years and then they can't serve again because in 2024, the election will be for Districts 1 and 2. So what Mr. Richardson was saying isn't necessarily correct. And of course, just because you're the incumbent doesn't mean you would win the next 2 years either way. But that's the situation right now. We currently have representatives from Districts 2, 3, and 4, and nobody from District 1. I don't count in that regard because I'm for the whole city. We just need to understand that little bit first. At this point in time, I'd like to ask each of the council members for last comments, and then after everybody's made their comments, we will choose who we wish to have the appointment.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that I might happen to live in a district that I could represent if that district chose to elect me, but I actually serve at large. I don't know if my district would re-elect me or if they're tired of seeing my Halloween decorations year-round or whatever else. So I just wanted to clarify that. I happen to live in a district and I'd be honored if they chose me to represent them, but at this point I serve at large.
And that is District 2? Yes. Mr. Brown? Do you have a comment?
Real quick, I'd like to thank everybody who's made application. It serves, your dedication and everything to the city is amazing, and I appreciate it very much. What I don't, regardless of who we choose tonight, I hope all of you do not consider it a diss against somebody who wasn't chosen. So thank you for your service. I hope you continue to serve regardless of tonight's outcome. Thank you.
Well put.
I have a couple of comments. I'd like to thank the applicants at the same time. I think we got a good cross-section of the talent and community representatives who are willing to do the work, put in the time, and offer their time and their services. So thank you very much. And I liked hearing each of you advocate for yourselves, what you brought to the table and why you were applying. I do want to address community perspective on the election results. I think it's important to acknowledge again that the last election was the first of its kind district-based election, and it's new and it's different, and was run for District 3 and District 4. And it was driven by the California Voter Rights Act, which has a specific intent of avoiding voter dilution. And what that means, it was specifically to avoid having one particular set or block of voters, essentially at large, choose in effect, every single council seat. And this past election, we tried it. It's not, I think, not a surprise that we have a new view of a new council representing the same community, the voters, and the same Solvang. So I would just encourage us to avoid having the council directly, in effect, activating voter dilution by choosing one of the candidates who ran for District 3 and 4 and lost. It would be the effect of dismissing what the voter choice has been and what the certified election results have been accepted and approved.
Thank you. My comments are back to a little bit about the districting that you just heard. Right now, as I stated before, we have representatives from District 2, 3, and 4. We do not have anybody representing District 1. District 1 is where you're going to hear a lot about at the next meeting, because we're going to be covering the housing element of the general plan update. And that's going to affect District 1 and some in District 2, but in District 1 a lot. And so it is my opinion that we need to have somebody that represents the residents of District 1, so that first off, we have an even distribution of all of the representatives on the council, and two, we have somebody to fulfill that role for that particular item that's going to be coming up. But I have to admit, I would like to thank all of the four applicants. And I think all of you are qualified. A decision now at this point is something we're going to have to come up with. So at this point, Mr. Attorney, I'm going to ask that each of us just say who we would like to have, and then if we get a majority, or what's the count?
Well, fundamentally, the municipal code makes reference to Rosenberg's rules of order. And typically, when you follow those types, you open the floor to nominations of particular candidates, and then you can close it to nominations. Nominations don't need to be seconded, but it gives you an idea. It's the same function of what you're doing, but I just wanted to line out what the reasoning is for doing that. So the appropriate approach would be to open the floor to nominations. Once the nominations are done, then you can close the nominations and move forward to vote on those that have been nominated.
And you would expect them to vote for somebody that wasn't nominated?
Well, if...
I mean, if we're all going to... Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
There could be multiple nominations.
I see it. Okay, then let's open the floor for nominations to fill the fifth seat, the fourth city council member seat. If I may start with Ms. Claudia Rona.
I again thank you to everybody that applied for the empty seat. Everybody's very capable, and back when we were going on general elections, at some point, the council decided that they would choose whoever was the runner-up in an election. However, because we are in districts, that doesn't make much sense. But, you know, I cannot ignore all of the emails and all of the letters that I have gotten. These are people that took the time to speak one way or the other. I'll say there's one candidate that got, an overwhelming amount of support, but there's also the one candidate that got a few letters in the opposite of support. So it's tough, but I am going to nominate Robert Clark.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
If I understood our council's proposal, was that we were to accept nominations from the floor? These people have already been nominated?
We are the floor.
Okay.
That's, you gotta, yeah, that's a weird term, and
Okay.
these lawyers, you know, they're just,
Lawyers speak.
And
Yeah.
that is the wording that is used in Rosenberg's. It's nominations from the floor. It is intended to be the body that is making the determination.
And I will second that nomination. And I will give you a little reasoning as well, because we talked about districts and so forth. But the position that we're focused on, or should be focused on, is the vacancy that was created at large. And so from that, so unless that individual lives in, is it District 1, you said? Or were to live there, it would not be an incumbent situation unless they live there for the next election. So with that and with the nominations and the things I've heard tonight, I second that nomination.
Ms. Arona?
Yeah, I'm going to nominate differently for a few reasons. There's a standout candidate that is, I think stands out as someone who brings in a level of experience that we need from the Planning Commission. Also has had a local business owner, has sat on the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce, presented a very strong package. I think it is a rightful approach to the election results to nominate someone who is not an ex-candidate in the former election. And so the standout for me was Jack Williams, and so I'm nominating Jack Williams for the 5th council seat.
Thank you. I will second that, and for a couple of reasons. Jack's qualifications are beyond reproach. But I also, again, think that we need to have a representative from District 1. And Jack lives in District 1. So that would make him, in my mind, an ideal candidate, so I nominate Jack Williams.
Okay, the next procedure would be to close nominations if there are no further nominations from the council.
No further nominations? Then we will close nominations. And when do we do this again? Next meeting?
No, you do it now.
We should vote.
You're going to do it now, but you're going to have, there are 2 candidates that have been nominated, and then you can see if there's a motion and a second to appoint now one of those candidates, and a motion and a second to appoint the other one. So someone can make a motion. The nominations, although they have been seconded, those were just nominations. Now is the actual vote that you will
Now
be
it's the
going through.
actual vote.
Yep.
All right, thank you. I will ask then for a motion.
I'm going to motion to appoint Jack Williams to the 5th council seat.
I will second that. So I guess we need a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brown.
Nay?
Councilmember Claudia Arona.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona.
Yes.
Mayor Infante.
Yes.
Motion fails 2-2.
Now we have to wait until next period, or next one, or what are we gonna do?
No, there's no action taken on that, so you can entertain an alternate motion that can be made by someone else, but there's no action taken when there's a tie vote.
Thank you very much. Alternate motion?
I would move to nominate or vote on the other candidate, Robert Clark.
Mark, good work.
Don't get me going. For a number of reasons, and I'd like to say that, and not to prolong it, but I do admire Mr. Clark's campaign. He was short, but I will say that he collectively, the number of votes that he received would surpass the entire district of our District 3 for the number of votes received. And because we talked about number of votes, and that was really significant. But anyway, my nominations for Robert Clark.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Arona,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona,
No.
Mayor Infante.
No.
Motion fails 2-2.
There's still no action taken on this item. You can either entertain alternate motions, or you can continue it to another meeting, or you can also have discussion about alternate proposals for filling the vacancy.
Does anybody have an alternate proposal?
Well, the alternates.
I would
yeah.
make a motion to adjourn the topic until the next meeting and see if we can confer.
We can't talk about it.
You won't be able to talk about it amongst yourselves as council members. Certainly, if you wish to table the matter until the next meeting, it could be considered at the next meeting, and you could take input from members of the public during that period of time. But I would caution against council members having that discussion outside
Fair
the
enough,
meeting.
fair point. So let's make a motion to adjourn and solicit further public input. I think there were a number of emails and communications that were split. So here we are.
So the motion to table the item until the next meeting?
Table the
then?
item until the next meeting.
Do we have a second for that motion? No. Motion fails for no second. Have a motion then?
I really think that we should take a decision tonight. We cannot keep kicking this down the road. So I am gonna try to sell you on Robert Clark quickly. Jack Williams is a great candidate and a great option, but I did receive about 45 emails, 50, and about 25 to 30 of them, 25%, 25 of them affirm that they would like Robert Clark to serve. We have an overwhelming opinion that they would like him to serve. We don't always see eye to eye on him, but we have a lot of things that we're reviewing right now. The general plan, there are some, some litigation cases going on, and I would just like to see somebody that has seen the development of all of this, in addition to the new perspectives that we have. So, I might not agree on everything that he says, but I have seen him flip his stance on issues based on what public input is, and I can respect that. So I'll be happy to work with whoever, but I insist that based on the feedback that we've gotten today and throughout the week, that we should strongly consider Robert Clark.
We talked about alternatives, and the alternatives that are coming. First of all, I think the slate that we have to choose from is amazing. It's not. I don't think it could be much better. But at the same time, I think that as Mr. Rona said, I think this candidate's shovel-ready, if you will, but don't mind the construction terms. And I acknowledge the strengths that the others bring. It is that shovel readiness that I admire and can use on this board. And the other alternatives were a general election, and that cost and the timing would be prohibitive, because whoever is, if we went through that process of election, a special election, it wouldn't be until the end of this year before they would even be seated, because, and we don't need that vacancy for that length of time. So and we have to make that decision within a 60-day period, or we're forced to do it.
Yep.
So I think I would like to see Mr. Williams continue with the planning department. I think he has great knowledge and base to bring, and the other candidates as well, be engaged. Is at this time, I think Mr. Clark is our strongest opportunity. And with that, I would like to nominate Mr. Clark for the empty position.
It's a second to her motion, I believe.
What motion? That wasn't.
Be it Clark, right? Isn't that what we heard?
I didn't officially make a motion, but
There
yeah.
was no motion on the floor. She was just advocating for Mr. Clark
Right.
to be
I apologize.
appointed.
I thought it was a motion.
Well, I'll advocate then for and implore the council to reconsider some data. First of all, in each of the two districts, the votes cast were over 50% voter turnout. So for District 3, you had 58% of the voter turnout. For District 4, you had 69%, the registered voters turnout for that vote. By choosing either of these two candidates, or either two of the four that are quite viable, who participated in last November's election, who are by definition dismissing those voters' voice. And I think you really need to consider the amount of trust, transparency, and faith the voters have put in the council. And I will just point out that the prior council had a hand in defining those districts, accepted the CVRA, and accepted the election results. You have two great candidates as options, one who is also shovel-ready, and that's Jack Williams. I'll move to nominate Jack Williams.
I'll second the nomination. I need a vote again, please.
Councilmember Brown,
No.
Councilmember Claudia Rona,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona,
Yes.
Mayor Infante.
Yes.
Motion fails.
So now we need a motion to push it off into the next period, next council meeting, I guess.
You guys are ignoring the people.
Yeah, let's listen to the people.
Please, you've had your chance to speak. Let us talk on the council. Thank you. So,
Brad had a comment.
I just thought you were going to make a motion on the last one.
all right, so once again, we are at an impasse, and I don't see a lot of movement on this. Yes, there's a lot of people that are for Mr. Clark. There was also a lot of emails that came in for Mr. Williams. So this is not an easy decision to make. We have stated why we wanted to make the decisions we did, and none of us seem to want to vary that vote. So I am going to move that we push this off into the next meeting.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brown,
No?
Councilmember Claudia Arona,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona,
Yes.
Mayor Infante.
Yes.
Motion fails.
I have a real problem with basing the decision of this on the results of an election of one district when the position is at large. How many votes did you get in your election? In your election, I don't recall. It was something
It
like
isn't, you mean one election, you mean one total election, the moment of the
no,
election?
just for what number decided the election on District 4?
What, voter count?
Yes. Yeah, roughly. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, it was 350.
Like 300.
353 votes.
I'm sorry?
353 votes.
355 people are going to decide for the rest of Solvang, for a town of
Well,
6,000.
that's of significant volume than even the count in the room. So I don't think you can dismiss that.
Please, ladies and gentlemen, please.
Yeah.
Let us discuss it. You get to listen, please. So the comment is back and forth.
Yeah, I just think it's messy if we start arguing, well, the election results based on districts when we are selecting an at-large position. And we are basing it on various criteria, and I'm just trying to go for what the feedback has been for this topic. Short of that, we have to go to elections if we want to, really make it about the people. But so far, what we have to go for is the information that the candidates have given us and the amount of feedback that we have.
It is unusual that you had an election with two of the applicants. So you actually did take the time and ask the voter community what they preferred. And they responded. It's not the question of whether the election was valid. It wasn't an at-large election, but you have two applicants who have already been voted on.
I fail to see the connection because this is not a district election. It is an
No, it is about the candidates, right? And so you have you have either the choice of dismissing that vote and appointing a candidate that the voters where the district resides.
Well, by that logic, then why are we
They
choosing
chose.
people that did not even run? The voters did not get to vet them.
Sorry, say that again?
Yeah, by that logic, then we shouldn't even be considering people that did not run because the voters did not get to vote on whether they want him in office or
No,
not.
I agree. It's a unique situation because we have half of the council representing at large and half, moving towards the district, and we're already seated in districts. So to Mark's point, we could have a segment of the city, have a de facto representative on the council. Otherwise, who is representing District 1?
We are not selecting somebody to represent each district. We are selecting somebody to serve at a large position.
Yeah.
We can't, I'm sorry, go ahead.
If there were a special election, would it not be a general election?
Yeah.
It would be at large. I think your idea of a general election, it's not going to be a general election in the sense that it waits until November of 2024. It would be a special election. That's the differentiation. But it would be for an at-large seat because it would be filling a vacancy created by Mayor Infante's elevation to the mayor's seat.
Which was the position Mr. Clark was elected to originally as a general election. Thank you.
So we all agree not to agree.
Special election.
So I'm going to push this, I'm going to move and make a motion that we push this off to the next council meeting.
What would you hope to have at that time that you don't have today?
Well, we're going to, first off, I think the website needs to identify what the situation is and ask for people to give us their input.
People from District 1 or
From
everybody?
everybody. It has to be from everybody. But the question, I mean, we still have to put up the positions that have been brought up here, and let's see what the people say in that regard. So that is one way of doing it. I don't know what else to do if we can't come to a conclusion except spend the $40,000 it's going to take to have a special election.
We could flip a coin.
Yeah, we could. I don't like that idea, but we could. Okay. Mr. Attorney, what would you suggest?
I don't have a suggestion. This is entirely within your province.
Very unusual for you.
No, this is entirely within your province. You have two options. You appoint or a special election. That is what the law requires to fill the vacancy. And short of that, how you get to that point is going to be something that you all need to debate amongst yourselves.
Okay. Suggestions?
Listen to the people.
Please. We could ask Robert to give it up. He's that dedicated. That'd solve the problem.
What about,
Standing
what
rock.
about Jerry?
Who's Jerry?
Jack.
And as much as we have all the candidates here, would any of them wish to withdraw?
Yeah, that answered that question.
That was a nice suggestion, thank you.
I still move that we leave this alone and let us think about it until the next meeting. That's only, what, 8, 9 days away?
Well, Mr. Mayor, it appears that that motion's been made and has not passed. If no action has been taken, you can certainly move to the next agenda item, give staff direction to place this on the agenda for the next meeting, even though that's going to push off the decision. But there's been no action taken one way or another. And in the absence of there being formal action, council typically will direct staff to place something on a subsequent agenda if council agrees to that. And we don't really have a rule as to what happens if we've done it by consensus. And I don't think we're going to get consensus to even put it on a subsequent agenda unless the council agrees to that. So it makes it a little bit difficult. So if you do nothing and move to the next agenda item, by default, there's going to be a special election.
Let's try this again. I think community is essential for us as a council to get, some real work done. And the community has to be engaged and involved, and I think at the end of the game, supportive of the council and the mayor. So I think it's imperative for us to make a decision that is expedited and doesn't cost the community any further expense, and ensures that we go forward with the trust and transparency and the faith of the community. And so I'll suggest again, we have two candidates or two applicants who are not controversial and they are qualified. And they are not participants in the last election. And you can be assured that the community would accept a selection as opposed to at least the public letters that we all received were split roughly 50-50 if we eliminate the non-voting citizens of Solvang. So I would ask you to consider, there was one particular candidate that wasn't without conflicting feedback.
Well, by anybody that sits here is going to get conflicting feedback. The support for one particular candidate was overwhelming on my end. I'm just going on my experience. Perhaps the feedback that you got was different. But yeah, anybody's going to get negative feedback based on whatever decisions they got. But that doesn't discount the overwhelming support that Mr. Clark got on his appointment.
If I may, I appreciate your passion. I do. I think it's a bit misplaced by saying that they didn't run. I think that in as much as we are in districts in the future, that in 2 years' time, those individuals will be running again, I hope. But they can't do it unless they're in that district. So they'll have that opportunity. We're not taking that away from them being represented by this panel, by the council. And I would like to ask the mayor to, again, solicit any feedback or ideas from the people that are here and open up the floor again for any ideas that somebody might have to get through this impasse. We don't have all the ideas, and I've heard some things out in the gallery. If there is something more to say, I would hope you would allow that to occur.
Well, that's up to the council. Do you want to hear some more from the people that are in the room or on Zoom? Because this is not a normal situation.
Yeah, I mean, we've already had, the public hearing. People have already said that.
We know what everybody in here is thinking.
Yes, we
So
know what
getting
they're
it
thinking.
again.
We know what we're going to get.
It's not what they're thinking, it's do they have any ideas to get through this impasse?
Mr. Mayor, this is Jim Richardson. I'd be willing to put my name in nomination to break the deadlock.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Well, I think what I heard was if there's nothing happening here and we go to the next agenda item, we can put this on, the next item on our agenda tonight, we can put this on the agenda for the next meeting.
That's going to be the consensus of the council.
That's the consensus of the council.
If that's the consensus of the council to put it on there, but it sounds like there are two that are in favor of that and two that are not. So we as staff would have a difficult situation in that we have typically placed things on the agenda when we receive consensus of council to do so. If we were to set a precedent by having two council members say they want something on the agenda and two that don't, we don't have action taken one way or another on that. So it places staff in a difficult position as to what to do without clear majority direction from the council. That's why we seek consensus for that type of thing.
Thank you. And we can't get consensus on that either. Okay. But Mr. Brown makes a great point. How many of us are going to actually change our opinions if we wait 10 days or so? And probably none of us. I hate to put the city into a...
Could you speak up so we can hear you, Mark?
You're missing your hearing aids, Lee. What I was saying was I hate to put the city into a position of spending the money for an outside election, and that's almost what we're headed for. Let's, there's a confab going on in the back of the room. Maybe they're going to make a decision for us.
A question for you both. is your Robert Clark yes vote the affirm no on Jack Williams? Is there a reason you would dismiss his candidacy? What's your reason?
Wait, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
What would be your rationale? Is your yes on Robert Clark a no on Jack Williams?
It's not that I'd be, Jack is a, fine candidate. He's a great asset to the city, but I cannot in good conscience dismiss all the people that took the time to come here and speak and send emails. That's my position. But I would be very happy and honored to serve along Jack Williams. He is outstanding as well.
I think so too. How do you respond to the voters that voted no for Robert and expected a change?
Well, again, we would be basing that on the results on a district of a very close call election for a position that is at large. So I don't think that is a fair. Yeah, I don't think that's fair logic to apply in this case. Yeah, again, that would be 300 and something people deciding for a town of almost 4,000 registered voters.
They're deciding for one candidate and deciding against a certain candidate. That's what that district did.
That's how it
All right,
works.
please. All right.
If I may, I hate that thing. I'd like to kind of ask you the same question. If the field were 3 instead of 4, I think it'd be a much easier conversation to have. It's not that we're voting someone down. We think that Mr. Clark has the best resources to this board at this time. And we also know that that term is 2 years, and it won't go beyond that unless he moves or there was some other change. So for that purpose, I'm saying that just as we have an interim manager, I consider Mr. Clark will be an interim board member at best, because it'll be limited to 2 years. And I, for one, would enjoy that experience on this board.
That would be the equivalent of having a council person having a 6-year term, putting Robert Clark on the appointee.
No, he can't go again.
No, 4 plus 6. 4 plus 6. Sorry, 4 plus 2. 4 plus 2 is 6, right? He would have 2 more years.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Kind of an informed decision, huh? Okay.
Well, and I'll also add, again, the results of the last election uniquely had a candidate, Robert Clark, that ran on his 4-year record, and the voters selected.
Okay, we're not getting any place, so let me try and bring this to a head. And I'm going to apologize to Mr. Williams because I think he is the superior candidate. But I'm sorry, the public conversation is done, please. We're not getting any place, and I don't want to spend the money to go to a public vote.
We have time. It's only 9.
Huh?
It's only 9.
It's only 9, that's fine. Oh, boy. I keep getting interesting texts. I have to bring this to a head.
Can we just cover what's in our blue sheet, or blue folder? What's in our blue folder? Did we cover this, or is this
Well, I think everybody's
disclosed?
available, haven't they?
Well,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Robert Clark.
I'll second that motion.
Gotta get this over. Please have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Brown. Councilmember Claudia Rona.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona.
No.
Mayor Infante.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-1.
Please, ladies and gentlemen, please.
Who voted not only for Elizabeth, but against Robert.
I don't know what she's saying. I don't know. She's rambling. So this is, okay. Do you have any more water? Thank you. All right. So with that, I think we have made an appointment of Mr. Clark to the city council. And please, ladies and gentlemen, I hope he's worth saving $40,000 for. I'm not
So,
convinced of that yet.
The
but-
city clerk can give him his oath now, and he can be seated for the last item on the agenda. If you, I believe that's what the city's attorney's recommendation is.
Yeah, so the city clerk can go ahead and swear in Mr. Clark to serve on the council, deliver the certificate of nomination or appointment at that point.
Before we go to that, I'd like to thank everybody that came tonight, and I appreciate the passion and the efforts that they put forth. Thank you. And thank you, Mayor, for your leadership. I appreciate it. No.
I'm not sure it was leadership, but at least we had to come to a conclusion. And-
Mr. Mayor, I'd
and-
suggest a
and
break.
Robert is not the worst candidate out there. He just,
I've been saying that about myself for years. I'm
Mis-
not the worst person in the world.
second worst.
Mr. Mayor?
Please, Robert, come on up and we'll swear you in so that you can take a seat. We actually probably even have
How
a
about
sign
if we
for
take a
you.
break?
Yeah, the city clerk's going to need to go get the
Oh,
oath,
the
so
city,
if we can take a
okay.
break.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break for 12, 14 minutes. We'll resume at 20 minutes after 9. Thank you.
Minutes at 9, you come back and say, we can take a vote, meeting going.
Please.
I remember the seat.
That's where you normally sit. I know. Down at the end. Go get over there. We are now going to swear in, instead of swearing at, Mr. Clark.
Careful what you wish for.
We didn't wish this.
Yeah. We didn't wish for you.
I state your name, Robert Clark,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
That I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
I bet you Anna Marie could probably find a sign that has his name on it, too. But we won't worry about that for tonight. All right, thank you. So we now have 5 council members, and we will proceed on with the next agenda item, please. Madam Clerk, if you would read that into the record.
Discussion and possible action to approve the agreement with Ewing Consulting, Inc. for the classification and compensation study in the amount not to exceed $13,500 for the term January 9, 2023 through June 30th, 2023, and authorize the mayor to execute on behalf of the city. Approve a budget amendment adjustment in the amount of $13,500.
Staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and members of the public. It's on.
Just get closer to you.
Just get closer. Is that better? All right. At the August 22nd, 22 City Council meeting, the City Council approved a one-year agreement with the Teamsters Local 986 for Memorandum of Understanding. And in that Memorandum of Understanding, the council agreed to completing a compensation classification study. And in August, staff went out with the RFP, and we received 3 bids in September, with finalizing the study in November. But due to staff's changes, that study was never brought to the council for approval. So tonight, before you, staff has rated all 3 proposals, and they are recommending Ewing Consulting for $13,500. The other 2 proposals, one was for $14,000 and one was for $39,600. The alternative is for the city council not to perform the study, but then you would be in violation of the terms agreed to in the Memorandum of Understanding. When we rated all 3 candidates, we looked at each of their scope of works, and we decided that Ewing Consultant would be the best fit for the city. And because the MOU was adopted after the budget, there wasn't any money set aside, so that's why we'd have to do a budget adjustment for $13,500. Any questions?
Council, questions?
No.
In that case, we'll take it out to the public. There's a couple left out there. Does anybody out there want, I don't have a slip for anybody. Does anybody out there want to make a comment on this particular agenda item? No? Anybody on Zoom want to make a comment on this agenda item? In that case, we'll bring it back to the council for final comments or a motion.
I move to approve the contract.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Can we add the budget adjustment also to that motion?
Yes.
Yes.
I apologize. Budget, I move that we approve the contract and make the budget adjustment.
Second that.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Romna,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona,
Yes.
Mayor Infante.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
It was unusual to hear a voice down at that end of the table, you know? Okay, enough joking around. There is only an AB 1234 report out and council closing comments. Does anybody have a, AB 1234 is if you have been on any public, explain that, say that better than I am.
Yeah, it's
please.
basically an opportunity for council members to update the rest of the council if you've attended a conference that was paid for at public cost. So
Oh,
if
not
you-
just meetings, okay, thank you.
Yeah, so if you've gone to a conference, you're supposed to give a brief summary of what was covered and, just a report to the council.
I haven't attended, but I've been invited to the tourism in Santa Barbara.
I'm going.
So
So is Tracy.
it comes up in a week or two,
Yeah, the 26th.
and I plan to be there at the Cabrillo Art Center.
Yeah, I will be there also.
I'll be
Tracy,
there.
of course, will be there. You
I'll be there
coming?
too, yeah.
Uh-oh, we gotta be careful. Can't carpool. Last comments?
It's an AB 1233 readout, which is comments, et cetera. Thank you to everyone, to my detractors, I shall try to earn your trust. To my supporters, I will try to make you proud.
Thank you very much. In that case, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to call this council meeting adjourned at 9:25.